Hello everyone, I'm making this video to mostly rant and complain about War of the Thorns and the Burning of Teldrassil cinematic in World of Warcraft, the pre-patched battle for Azeroth. This entire video is going to be unscripted and off the top of my head, so if you're not prepared for that, feel free to move on. Otherwise, please bear with me. Right, before I begin, let's get the good stuff out of the way first. So, the Burning of Teldrassil cinematic was awesome. Well, not really a cinematic, but animated short, whatever they're called. In terms of pure visuals, it is probably my favorite of them all so far. And that's about it for the good stuff. Now let's move on to the bad ones. Right, so I'm going to talk about primarily the Horde's perspective for two reasons. First, I'm a Horde player at heart, that's that. And the second one is that I mostly have issues with the Horde side of things, not so much with the Alliance. So there we go. Let's start at the very beginning. You're summoned by Sylvanas and she lays out her plan, which is a doomsday scenario for the Horde that starts with the Alliance getting their hands on the Azeroth and ending up with them destroying the Horde, basically. So in short, it goes like this. The Alliance are gonna get the Azeroth, they're gonna take it to Darnassus. From there, they'll transport it to Stormwind. After some time in Stormwind, they will inevitably create weapons of war, very powerful ones, with the Azeroth, and they'll eventually use them against the Undercity and Silvermoon and potentially the rest of the Horde. So we're doomed, right? And the only way to prevent this is to cut off their Azeroth supply and have it all for us. And how do we do that? Well, first we crush the spirit of the Night Elves by killing Malfurion, and then we occupy the World Tree. We take all the Night Elven civilians hostage, keep them inside the tree so that the Alliance does not bother us, and we do with the Azeroth whatever we want, and the Horde is safe, right? That is the definition of a slippery slope right there. And, you know, I'm not necessarily against the plan, so long as we don't have to blindly follow it as the players, and unfortunately we do, and that's where my issue comes from. That's where it all begins. See, to me it makes no sense, especially after Legion. Imagine you're one of the Horde druids of the Druid Order Hall, or maybe even the Druid player character, maybe even the Tauren Druid player character, let's say. So you went through the whole of Legion with your Order Hall being the cornerstone of the story, you know, most events are based around it, and it's really a symbol of unity despite your race, despite your faction, specialization, everything, doesn't matter, you're a druid, you stand for Azeroth, and you work together. Throughout the story, you helped Tyrande, you saved Malfurion, then you helped him save Cenarius, you also helped him cleanse the Emerald Dream. Mulgar actually is one of the places that you cleansed, you know, with the spider boss. So you did all these things, you've just delivered Illidan's last words to Tyrande and Malfurion, and you witnessed that cute scene when they're still young, sitting together, and after all this you finally come home and you immediately go out to murder Malfurion, you know, the Shan'do and the Night Elves, and to keep the citizens hostage in the World Tree. That doesn't make any sense that the Horde Druid, or especially the Tauren Druid, would do that. It just doesn't, and you do it in the game without question. So immediately I'm totally not invested in this quest and this storyline, and the way it progresses makes things no better. As you probably know, you take Sylvanas' orders, you go out to Ashenvale, to Darkshore, you murder elves left and right, and wisps and furbolgs and whatnot. And throughout this whole campaign, there is this ever-present feeling of the Horde being the bad guys, being evil, enjoying what they're doing right now. And I'm not comfortable with this, especially not at this moment, and especially not under these circumstances. Now, the main cause, I suppose, of this feeling is Sylvanas. She has this villainous undertone throughout the whole thing. We're tearing down the forest, Malfurion shows up, and she's like, "Malfurion, who would have guessed you'd show up to protect your precious trees," or something like that. And then he leaves and she's like, "Where did you fly away to, little bird?" And she just sounds... And then later on, when the wisps are dispersing, she once again comments on how great it is that their walls are coming down, and what a lovely sight that is, or something like that. Or at the very end, where the Night Elf woman is dying, tears coming out of her eyes, and Sylvanas is just looking at her with a smile on her face. I'm saying this once again, I don't necessarily have an issue with the way Sylvanas is portrayed, although I do, but it's not that big. The bigger one is that the rest of the Horde, including the player character, is following with her, doing everything she says, and doesn't seem to have any issues with any of that. Well, I suppose Saurfang has some issues with it, but he's still following her orders, and my main complaint is about the player character, not so much about Saurfang. And it's not only Sylvanas, actually. The Blood Elf guy, the Blood Elf rogue, I suppose, who's murdering the Sentinels in training, he seems to be enjoying that quite a lot, especially if you decide to kill a civilian. And by the way, it's a nice touch that you can avoid killing civilians as Horde. However, if you play Alliance, they do say that the Horde has killed the civilians as well. I don't know what to make of this. And there's more. Random Horde NPCs also have lines saying how much they enjoy doing what they're doing right now. I heard at least 2. Sadly, I couldn't record the first one simply because I wasn't expecting it and I wasn't recording. But the second one I caught, it's a female undead priest, I think. While you're fighting around Darkshore, as she's killing the Night Elves, she laughs maniacally and goes,
"Do you hear the screams?"
So yeah, this is basically the atmosphere I'm talking about, and the one that I don't like, and I think it does not fit the story, certainly not at this moment. Right, and so we finally reach Malfurion. He overpowers Sylvanas, and then Saurfang kind of backstabs him, and Tyrande shows up and all that. On the Horde side, it seems like nobody acknowledges your presence. Sylvanas pays more attention to the Alliance character, and Tyrande, she does not even register your presence. She does not say a single word to you, even though you're the one who saved her husband, who stood by her side while fighting Ysera. You've just delivered Ilden's message to her, and she has nothing to say to you. While she does say things to the Alliance player. And you might say, well, it goes like this. Saurfang only talks to the Horde player and Tyrande only talks to the Alliance player, but it doesn't really work like that. See, the relation between Alliance players and Saurfang is not like the one between Horde players, especially Horde druids, and Tyrande and Malfurion. And so we finally reach the end, the Burning of Teldrassil, where Sylvanas displays the mental fortitude of my 3-year-old daughter, basically. She's preparing her forces to invade the tree, and one line from the dying Night Elf on the ground, saying that she cannot win against hope or something like that, is enough to throw her so far out of balance and to make her go completely against her own plan. So she's having a fit or whatever, and she starts shouting, burn it, and they burn the tree, and then the scene ends, you talk to her and she's like, well, this didn't go the way I planned. I'm like, no kidding, it didn't go. Like, what was the whole point? Like, why did we slaughter so many Night Elves and do all this? Like, wasn't it the whole point to prevent the Alliance from attacking the Undercity? Guess what happens next week? Warchief, the Alliance attack the Undercity. Oh my goodness. Seriously, I was playing this with my wife. She jokingly said that Sylvanas is on her period, but I mean, I don't know what other explanation to possibly find. It was just ridiculous, right? And let's talk some more about this scene, the Burning of Teldrassil. What was actually the point of Sylvanas telling her story to the Night Elf? Because I didn't get that either. The question that the Night Elf asks is, why are you so malicious? Why are you so full of hate and whatnot? Don't you remember that you once protected people? Sylvanas says, I remember a fool. And that's the first thing that confuses me. Why does she refer to herself as a fool? What is it that she did so wrong and so foolish in her fight against the Scourge and Arthas? Is she a fool because she thought she could win? So was she supposed to run away or something? Or is she a fool because she lost? I mean, it looks like she was a fool to slide herself into Frostmourne, which is not what she did. She was actually smarter than that, and she annoyed Arthas so much, and that was the reason why she turned her into a Banshee. But anyway, I don't quite see why she thinks she was a fool. Perhaps she regrets not being as brutal and as evil as the Scourge? I don't know. And the other thing I don't quite understand is how come the story of what happened to Sylvanas and Silvermoon is the answer to the question of why Sylvanas is acting the way she is. You know, she tells her the story and says, now you understand. And I'm like, understand what? How is what Sylvanas doing right now a consequence of what Arthas did? Like, is she trying to say that Arthas turned me into a monster and therefore I'm acting like one? I mean, that's cheap, I think. Or is it that I'm no longer alive, you know, I'm undead, I'm a banshee, so I no longer care about life and empathy and sympathy and whatnot? Which, again, I don't think that's the case, because just a moment later, she seems pretty heavily affected. Or could it be that Sylvanas is just trying to tell the Night Elf that bad things happen at war, and she does it by giving an example of her own story, you know, her own past? And so that gives the developers the excuse to turn this into a flashback and show her backstory to people who may have not played through Warcraft 3. I guess that's possible, and that might be it, as my cat does something in the background, but I still find it somewhat puzzling. Anyway, I think that's all I wanted to say. I haven't talked about the Alliance side of the story, but if anything, the Horde appears much worse there. They kill the civilians in Astranar, and they lead to the deaths of, about 1,000 civilians in the World Tree. So at this point, I do not think there is any salvation left for Sylvanas' character, and I really hope, especially on the Horde side, that we will not have to spend an entire expansion doing things similar to the War of the Thorns. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned and be good.